This is Monday's Mind Emission on the ToadCam. I will begin with a little bit of Robert Dilts in our book here, Sleight of Mouth, page 78, and we're going to be looking at the structure of meaning. Here, Dilts says, NLP processes and models, such as those characterized by sleight of mouth, were developed to explore and discover how we symbolize, signify or represent experiential facts, data, how we interpret or give that data inner significance, inner maps of the world. In other words, how we make meaning. Great. I will look at it in two different directions. How we make meaning and how meaning shapes us. So that's what you would call a dialectical process. And the dialectical process is a philosophical concept, and it means that there is a co-sculpting or co-creation where both parties, both active parties in their different ways can influence the other. So as meaning is meaning in the sender, or is meaning in the receiver, or is meaning the dynamic interplay of sender and receiver. I think the NLP model is a little bit stiff-necked on this point, and this is a place we need to loosen things up. Loosening up some kind of core jargon or core stuff that gets repeated over and over again and just gets taken for doctrine and doesn't get really questioned. So Dilts will go on 80 saying, the meaning of a communication to the receiver is the response it elicits in that receiver, regardless of the intention of the communicator. So that, of course, I think is healthy and helpful, especially in a training frame, when it puts the burden, and if it's putting the burden appropriately, in the appropriate context, on the generator of the communication in a very simplistic and narrowed model of the communication, that's really useful. That's really useful as a form of a training, sort of a set of constraining walls to define communication in that way. But like all simple models that have a training function, it does break down when we're looking at more complex structures. You can say, you can say, one, that's tautologically true in a circular way. What the meaning to you is the meaning to you. If the meaning to the receiver is the meaning to the receiver, of course. When you expand the frame and you say it's a political speech, or you're speaking to a group, and you've got all the receivers out there, is the meaning how they all receive it in the moment? Is the meaning all potential and possible interpretations of what's being said? Does the meaning arise from how the group processes collectively that information in time periods after the communication's been given? Which is the essence of what good screenwriting is about. You set up certain assumptions. You direct people's attention and thought processes to form. Basically, a good screenwriter is tricking the mind, and a good magician as well, is tricking the mind to impose content in a way that's very deliberate, and then often creating more tension or interest by shifting the interpretation of that content at one of, you might say, the sort of critical moments in the unfolding of the story. Suddenly things become very different, some new fact is introduced, and the meaning shifts. So the meaning isn't just a fixed point, but the meaning is constantly unfolding. And the meaning is constantly unfolding once the speaker has vanished. The speaker is absent, yet meaning is continuously flowing and evolving from various other interactions, and it's so that what the meaning is going to be at a distant point is quite different than the meaning in the moment, and there are lots of interesting stories about that. The next thing we're going to look at here is the time paradox. This is Phil Zimbardo's new book, The Time Paradox: New Psychology of Time That Will Change Your Life, co-written by John Boyd. So what I'm getting out of this is that we've been hanging up and just habitually, using our language habitually to stick on certain ideas like intent. And once you start taking apart intent and meaning, there are a lot of interesting possibilities, a lot of really nice places we could be going with that involve both how meaning is continuously being created and reshaped, how content and process interact, and modern neuroscience, if you read, say, the work of Conan Goldberg and others, does not really adhere to the idea that there's just this one thing going on over here that's content, and this other thing going over here that's process. They, as I mentioned before, they speak of them as very interleaved, as part of the brain is attributing content, and another is implying and interjecting process, and it's like content, process, content, process, content, process. There's a very rich dialectical flow of what we would kind of call content, although I'm not sure we've got really good definitions of content and process. So in terms of the way the brain is operating in real time, and I think that's what NLP is trying to speak to, you've basically got this very braided, interwoven process of process and content, dynamically acting on whatever reality is. So I'm going to terminate this little bit here and look a little bit more into Zimbardo and what I've been saying next.